What is happening, everybody? trueeevil here, and today I am bringing you my ultimate guide to Fuqiu in Etheria Restart. Now, she's released a couple of days ago, and in those days I've spent a whole lot of time testing her to really figure out what are the best builds for her in both PvE and PvP content. But before we talk about the builds, what I want to do is sort of go over her kit and why you may or may not want to pull her. Now, before we get into the kits, I just really want to talk about what makes her really special because her kit is pretty unique and it has a lot of things that you might be interested in if you're looking to pull on the banner. And the most important part is, of course, she's a shielder and she has one of the highest HPs in the game. So if you pair her with something like Wellspring, this shield is going to be absolutely ginormous. But more importantly, we get a unique passive effect, sort of like Hazy Dream, and that is Moonlit Veil. And what separates it from Hazy Dream is Hazy Dream, when they're on their turns, they get a shield and a basic buff. And what this is whenever any of your allies in their turn or they get attacked, they're going to get a heal based off of their max HP and then a turn meter increase. And this is really, really nice and helps push everything along. And if you couple this with something like, say, Freya, Chiaki the Echo, Doki Doki, etc., it just really, really works. And not only that, but we get speed up on this. And this is crucial because this is the first character that has had a banner that has speed up. And this is really important because most of the characters that have speed up that are used frequently are light and dark units, which is Lily and Mio. So it's really nice that there's a RGB unit with a targeted banner to pull it. Now, of course, Fuqiu also has speed up, but I wouldn't say Fuqiu is a real meta PvE unit, so it's nice that we have this shielder healer that can also have that role of the speed up, since it's arguably one of the most important buffs in the entire game. Now, the way that she stays in Moonlit Veil, as you can see, she can still gain turn meter while in Moonlit Veil and get CC'd, which is different than Valerian, who Valerian can't gain turn meter or lose turn meter at all and can't get CC'd during Hazy Dream. And the way that she stays in Moonlit Veil isn't necessarily by being built slow as Molasses, but it's by her passive, which is Brocade. What Brocade does is essentially it just makes it so her turn meter gets increased when she's not in Moonlit Veil, and it's decreased when she is out of it. Essentially, what Brocade does is when she's not in Moonlit Veil, every time an enemy ends their turn, it just boosts her up on the turn meter, and then when she is in Moonlit Veil, it bumps her back. And this is really, really nice, especially in a lot of PvE situations. For example, if something has like a really crazy counter attack, you don't necessarily want to attack them with your healer. For example, Inferno Rango, he has a counter attack that can do a whole lot of damage, and it's really nice being pushed back in that sort of situation and really make it so you don't just do 200 damage or something and then you get that really, really crazy crackback. So this is really nice, helps her stay in the zone and get you that Moonlit Veil. Now, the second skill is actually kind of important because this is like one of the skills that a healer necessarily doesn't have, which is it's kind of a really, really strong attack. And what it does is it's 3 hits of damage equal to 10% of her max HP, and that is a whole lot because her HP is very, very huge, especially when you pair it with something like a Supernova and a Wellspring and things like that. And more importantly, the awkward part of the unlatticed Fuqiu is that it's a percentage chance of hitting Moonlit Veil on all 3 of the procs, but once you get that to level 4, you don't necessarily have to worry about that. So once you get this to level 4, this is really, really big, hitting all 3 of the Moonlit Veils, especially when you've had it upgraded through the skill 3. This is absolutely going to clear house, and every time I've practiced 3 times, it has always been crazy. So I really can't wait until I max out this skill too. So that's how her kit works. She has a really strong attack. She gives speed up, turn meter up, heals, and giant shields. That's pretty much everything I want in a healer, so sign me up. Now let me explain her kit to you, and it's going to be a little bit of an explanation. Now, I do not have her best shell passives built, but I have been working on the shell for her. It's unfortunately the RNG drops are pretty abysmal, so it's really hard to find that perfect shell for her. But so far, what we have is, I believe Supernova is definitely going to be her best shell, and that is because once she does the skill 3, she's going to be in Moonlit Veil, and it will also proc her Supernova effect. And what this does is not necessarily empower the heals from the Moonlit Veil, but the really strong part is the heal over time effects, and this is going to trigger quite a bit, I believe, especially in a lot of harder situations like Inferno and PvP, and basically just makes it so not only is her shield huge, but she's going to do significant healing as well, and that's going to be really, really important. So that's why I think Supernova is her best healing shell. Now, these aren't the best matrices. In what I mean by that is that I do think Wellspring is her best 12 piece, because it's sort of like a Hell Kid situation where, sure, I can build Swift Rush and use it as an opener, but the shield isn't going to be strong enough in my opinion. And when you see people who have Hell Kids with a Swift Rush shield, it's kind of cute, except it's not big enough to actually do anything. What you need to make those shields worthwhile, of course, is with Hell Kid you need Onslaught and 3 right modules of attack percent, and for this character it's Wellspring and 3 HP percent on the right modules, and I'm going to stand by that 100%. I want a big shield on my shielder. I don't want like a little itty bitty shield. So in terms of that, I think Wellspring on the 12 for sure was Supernova. Now, Coloss Guard might seem weird on a healer, but if you check out her stats, she's not even level 50, and she has some of the highest defense of a healer in the game. Right now she has 694, she gets about 2 to 3 a level, so she's going to end up being around 720. And if we look at other healers, like for example here, it's about 100 more than Mia, and it's about 160 more than Ling Luo. Now, it's more like a Valerian, which makes sense because they both have similar effects. And because of that, now Valerian doesn't necessarily need this, because Valerian, well, doesn't need effect res because Hazy Dream makes it so she can't be CC'd. But Fuqiu's biggest weakness, of course, is effect res. Now, a Volguard is also in this situation, but because of how big her defense is, it's just really, really nice to have Coloss Guard. And her best shell can use Coloss Guard, which is really nice. And the problem with Valerian, I would say, is that the shells that work the best with her don't necessarily have Coloss Guard. So because of that, I do think it's 100% worth having Coloss Guard, because I do think that a Volguard is pretty mid across the board. I think it is definitely the worst final matrix, and because of that, you're definitely going to want Coloss Guard. So I would say do that. And now for the 8-piece. Now the 8-piece is going to be pretty different for a lot of people. That's why I said these aren't the best matrices, and what I mean by that is, well, for her, I think having Cure. I think having Cure for the extra HP and making the heals stronger, and that's going to sort of be the increased heal part, and you don't have to have a Volguard to make it even better. The Cure is just going to be enough to make it worthwhile, in my opinion. Now, this means she is slow and also susceptible to CC, and that is her biggest weakness, is that she can be silenced, she can be frozen, yada yada yada. That is her weakness that she has versus a character like Valerian. And to deal with that, what Supernova has that some of the other healing shells do not have is that you can get Bulwark here. So what I would recommend is, if you're in a situation where you don't have to worry about getting CC'd or anything, or you know you can set up perfectly, sure, go Cure. But in a lot of other situations where it's not sure, like PvP and say Rango or Shadowflame Hoyon, you're going to want to have Bulwark in my opinion, because it just makes everything more consistent and messes up their plans a little. And I hate getting silenced in this game. It feels so bad. So I definitely would recommend Bulwark on Fuqiu. And I think that's going to be better than Cure in a lot of places. The Cure is just like a really, really strong consistency. Now, if you don't want to have Bulwark and you don't necessarily need bigger heals, the other shell I would recommend for her is Alicorn. And the reason I would recommend Alicorn is it can also have the Wellspring, and then for the final matrix you can have the Coloss Guard. Then unfortunately you cannot have Cure in the 8 slot, but there is a lot of other things you can work with. I have been trying Bramble out and it's actually pretty nice in PvE, and that is because it's just going to help boost the turn meter a lot with her skill 1, which is just really, really nice in my opinion. So I've been working with that and it works just fine, but there's a lot of 8-piece matrices, and I'll just let you decide which one you want, because you may want Swift Rush, you may want Strive, you may want just, anything that you think is worth it, and you need to experiment because there are a lot of options in this game. Now, for her passives, they are going to not be these necessarily. I am going to say her best 3rd slot is going to be Dauntless. Dauntless is definitely her best one, and that is because of final damage taken is reduced by a pretty good percent. Now, defensive stance is another option, but I do not recommend it, and that is because defensive stance is about half as much as Dauntless, and the problem with say defensive stance on Fuqiu is that her only attack that doesn't do damage is her skill 3, and it does take a while. So it's better in a lot of these matches to just have the flat. It's just going to work out a lot better in a lot of situations, more so than the defensive stance. Now, of course, you're going to get whatever you roll, right? So it is what it is on that front, but just I would say that one is the best, and Synergy looks okay if you need more damage, but I would prefer the survivability personally. So Synergy is a 3rd on my list. I would say Dauntless, defensive stance, and then Synergy are going to be the best 3rd slots. For the 2nd slots, I am going to say the best one is going to be support. I was messing around with the healing increase one and the shield provided one, and I just felt like the support was just overly just a lot better. So I am going to recommend support for Fuqiu. The shielder likes the shielding passive. That's crazy. Now for this one, of course, her shield does get increased by HP, and there are 2 options. I think Surge is the better one, which is the HP percent piece, which is here. And then if you can't roll that, Source is totally fine. Now, the percentage will always be better than the flat, but it is what it is sometimes, right? We got to roll with what we get. Sometimes we get a crit damage on our healing shell, and we're going to roll into hey, I'll take it. So, yeah. So that's how I would deal with her shells. Hope this helps. Let's go on. Actually, we did already talk about the right modules. So now we're going to talk a little bit about PvP. So to talk about PvP, it's going to be kind of weird because what I'm going to say is that even though I did say Wellspring is going to make the shield bigger, the unfortunate reality is we are in a Revelation meta right now, and Revelation doesn't care about how much HP you have because, well, it's just going to shred it all no matter what. And some people are saying you want to build Bloodbath for that. So some people might say if you're going to use Fuqiu, because what her role is a opener for the what you call like a second turn opener, where the cleave team will go, you try to disrupt them so you don't get cleaved, and then Fuqiu will hit this, and if she survives, it sets up your bruiser team, and then you retaliate for the win. But the unfortunate reality is Bloodbath does not work very well against Revelation, and there's not actually really anything that does. I've tried the Coloss Guard Bloodbath with some other effects. Having a high HP doesn't matter because they shred it with percentages, and Alicorn is nice, but it doesn't matter if you get Revelation cleaved by a Freya and a Casio. And due to this, at the current state of the game, I cannot recommend anyone use Fuqiu in PvP. She is just not built, although I do see her being used in the future. The metagame has been warped around that one particular shell in such an unhealthy way that I just don't see it possible really being able to counter it with Fuqiu. So that is a little bit of a bummer. I did try a lot of different aspects. I tried to do the high wellspring. I tried to do ways to set her up as an opener. I tried the second turn route. I tried using Bloodbath instead of wellspring, and just nothing really worked out the way that it could have. And I dropped from high diamond all the way down to like middle plat trying to figure it out, and unfortunately I just really can't figure it out at this time. So I would really recommend not using her. Bulwark didn't seem to help, Alicorn didn't seem to help, Bloodbath didn't seem to help. Just really, Revelation I think is a huge problem, and I really hope that they address it soon, because, well, it's really not fun and it makes me not want to do PvP. So that's all I'm going to do talking about PvP for now. She will probably be good if, a second turn meta ever comes. But even though there was one at the beginning, I feel like the just increase of Revelation shells and just people having like 7 or 8 built Revelation shells on their accounts just kind of makes it so I wouldn't recommend it to anyone right now. Now, we're going to talk about duplicates for a little bit, as well as how to invest lattices into her. Now, of course, everyone has sort of the same final one, which is 10% more damage, 10% reduction, and of course the 10% reduction would be nice, but I wouldn't really recommend getting that dupe for her. I actually wouldn't really recommend any dupes. I actually think the effect accuracy dupe doesn't do anything. So if you do get dupes, it would only be for these first 3. And the only one that I can see kind of worth it is going to be the second one with the just 8% more increase of the shield. So since it's based off her HP, once she has a max skill 3, which I believe makes it 24%, 24% of her 14k HP, it's like 3.5 and then just an extra 350. It's not really that big of a deal, but if you do want just a little bit more juice on your Fuqiu, then it's definitely, it's definitely an option, and of course a bigger shield is going to help, but I really wouldn't recommend it. But what I would recommend is putting lattices into her, and as you can see, I have started on the skill 3, and that was to get the increased turn meter on Moonlit Veil. Now, she also scales everything on HP, so of course leveling her skill 3 is going to be the best in terms of stats. And honestly, what I would do is really get this to level 4 to have the strongest shield possible and the most just raw HP, and then really consider, do I want to get this? Now, this is an extra 2% HP increase every time Moonlit Veil triggers, which if you have something like Cure or Evolve Guard, which is of course just more than 2%. So that is definitely something to consider, but I would honestly just get to level 3 first, and then I would go on to either skill 1 and get the turn meter increase off the skill 1. Now, I wouldn't recommend to do that first though, because what I think is the real value and what I've seen from all my testing is the skill 2. And that is because getting 3 triggers of Moonlit Veil off the skill 2 is absolutely insane. So what I would recommend to do is to get the skill 2 to level 4, guarantee that 100%, and you're going to get a lot of effect res, which helps her with her weakest problem, which is she can get CC'd. And just a little bit of defense, but not really. So we're going to get this to level 4, get that 100%. Then you can either go back here, get to level 4 for the raw stats, and you can either get this to level 5, are get it to level 4 and then start maxing out this and get this to level 3, and then at level 3 I would go back to skill 3 and max it out, and then finally max this out. I wouldn't max out the skill 2 though. So basically you're looking at 11 lattices to fully upgrade her, and it's just going to really affect her, right? Because the extra 2% from the turn meter from her passive is really going to help put her back, because this is not just 2%. This is sort of like an extra 6% every round, which sort of goes up to about 12% in a lot of things, and in Ember Trek situations it's just an extra 10% around. It can really build up. It's about like a 15 to 20% extra increase, and it just helps her stay in Moonlit Vale. It's a really high quality of life that is going to be really nice, but I think just the turn meter increases first and just the raw HP stats are going to be the ones you want to go for, and of course that 100% chance on Moonlit Vale. Now, I did say you don't need to put the reduced skill cooldown level 5. I think that's totally not needed, and that's because, well, she is a shielder, and if this is on a 4-turn cooldown and the other move's on a 3, you use the 4, you use that one, they're going to get off cooldown at the same time, and pretty much 99% of the time, you're probably just going to want to pop this. So I do see situations where, of course, you do want to do that extra damage and push up someone else, but you know, lattices are sparing, so if you want to use that, sure, but I'm going to be saving it for different things because we don't really get a lot. I think we get about 12 every 6 weeks, so because of that, I'm really not going to be doing it for anything that isn't absolutely essential in my opinion. So yeah, this is my guide. I hope it really helped, and if you're looking for any content with Fuqiu in any of the Ember Trek modes, any of the Thresholds and Grim Pursuits, I do have some videos of her in all of that content and being compared with other teams to show how strong she is. So hope you check that out, and see you guys next time with another video.